the 11th of June 2025. Manasseh, this is addressed to you, am I right? Okay, and this is off the back of the petition you sent April 27th.
Yes.
All right, okay, so I'll just take you through the pointers so that we can hurry along with this conversation. So it's a re-petition to discontinue the expired contract between the Youth Employment Agency, YEA, and Zoomlion Ghana Limited. It starts off by saying, I refer to a letter dated April 27th, 2025 on the above matter. His Excellency, the President, acknowledges the serious concerns raised in your letter and responds as follows. Expiration of the contract, and that says that the contract will not be renewed. It has in fact expired. Audit of payments and claims, something that is going to happen. And also there's going to be competitive procurement. We've talked about this on The Big Issue, why government should be looking at competitive procurement to ensure that the state gets more bang for its buck. Also, sweeper fees, that's point 4. And that one says, with probable cost savings, the government intends to increase the sweeper fees to a more livable income. And then also fumigation contracts. Contracts that have not been performed will be reviewed and, where appropriate, terminated in accordance with their terms and upon advice of the Attorney General. All right, that is that letter signed by Callistus Mahama, Secretary to the President, again addressed to Mr. Manasseh Azure Awuni, who is in the studios. Manasseh, you described yesterday's news, or this letter, as one of the best pieces of news that you have received in your journalism career. Is it because of the length of time that you have been, shall I say, waging this war?
That is partly so. The other point is also that if you are in this country and you operate in the space that I do, some corporate entities and some individuals are almost untouchable. And Zoomlion and the Jospon Group is one of them. So someone would say, why praise the president for doing this? President Akufo-Addo and his MPP, when they were in opposition, said this was a fraudulent contract. They held a press conference in November 2016 and said the John Mahama administration was unable to do away with it because, in their ways, President Mahama was directly benefiting from rot such as this. Then Akufo-Addo became president, and it got worse. I personally, if anybody ever sees me having a photograph with the president's wife, the reason was this contract. After everything through his people failed, I had to meet the wife, and I went with a letter. Someone was asking, did I present a petition? A similar letter. It got worse. So it takes some level of boldness for President Mahama to do what he's done, and I appreciate him for that. Besides, when you are an investigative journalist, the work is dangerous. Your family will wonder why you should even do it. But two things keep you going. First is your commitment and your resolve that what you are doing is right, but also the impact. My very first investigative story was the JIDA, Youth Employment story. President Mahama was then in office. He constituted a committee that worked on it. 2 people went to jail. Parliament passed a law. That's how it's now Youth Employment Agency. All the contracts were cancelled except one. And that is the very one that has been discontinued now. We retrieved about 60 million cedis from the Agams group. RLG and others were gone, and the cancellation resulted in savings not less than $100 million. So that was something that really gave me a lot of comfort that, okay, if my effort could yield this result, then let me stay in investigative reporting, despite the fact that my family had said after that story I shouldn't do investigative reporting. Then you do this advocacy right to the president. There is that respect to respond to your letter and said, look, we are working on it, and when we are done, we'll communicate to you. Then after that, the communication comes to you in a very respectful manner. And this is something you hardly get from administrations. I've always been talking about what some of us endured in the Akufo-Addo era. So things like this do not only tend to motivate you to do more, it also gives you this hope that, look, those who matter will sometimes listen to you. I remember when I saw the fourth estate, we did a story about asset declaration.
Right.
We published how Minister Sam within 7 years didn't even declare the assets. The presidency didn't even acknowledge it. Recently, my colleagues, I'm no longer at the fourth estate, my colleagues who are there now did the story and then look at the response that the president gave. So if you're...
Are you referring to SML?
No, I'm talking of asset declaration.
Okay.
So if you are a journalist and then you do a story and the whole president acts on the story, it gives you some kind of motivation, because this work, two things. You're either doing for fame, for money or anything, but when you start journalism, when I started, just see my byline, a story by Manasseh was enough. Then I started winning awards. Then it got to a point, the awards became so many that they didn't really tickle you. And it's the work that your life is on the line, so I don't think any award is worth it. But if you believe strongly that certain people who are humans just like you are being treated like slaves with your resources, because the money is used to pay Zoomlion and others, they are those of us sitting here.
Taxpayers' money.
Yes, our money. So I would commend the president so highly for taking this step, but to say that this is just the beginning.
What more needs to be done?
Well, some announcements have been made. In the past, there were instructions that don't pay Zoomlion until satisfactory auditing was done. A lot of those things didn't happen. They continue to pay them. So we are going to ensure, or I am going to follow up to see, the president makes directives, but sometimes those below don't. And they said, okay, we are now going to subject contracts to competitive bidding. We are going to decentralize them. Some of the contracts are not needed in the first place, like this sweepers contract. Every assembly in this country has the capacity, more than Zoomlion, to supervise people to sweep. There are waste management departments in all the assemblies. Before Zoomlion came, we used to have in Saman people. The sanitary inspectors. You couldn't leave garbage in your frontage, in your home. Your parents would harass you that if you let them, someone else will use your fees to pay and then you be at home. So things were done properly. Zoomlion came to the scene, they put all of those ones aside and said, let's award a contract called sanitation gas, who would take over the Saman thing. And they operated just like these sweepers.
Right.
Let's give them 500, they'll pay 100 and take 400. That collapsed. So the assemblies, any district chief executive who wants to award a contract to somebody to supervise sweepers is either very ignorant about what is happening, or the person is simply a thief. I have a letter from the immediate past mayor of Accra,
right,
who writes to the YEA and says, the city is dirty. There are supposed to be this number of people to come and sweep our metropolis. We don't find them. So where are they? Can you give us the list? The YEA, which is supposed to own the youth employment program, the sweepers, didn't have the list. Meanwhile, every month, Zoomlion presents a budget of 45,000 people and they pay. Even when the YEA attempted to do a head count, it was led by Justin Kudria Frimpong, who is now the MPP General Secretary. He was the YEA CEO. They did this head count and came out to say, look, some of the people that didn't even have our appointment letters. But even with that, we got 38,000. Zoomlion presents 45,000. We asked Zoomlion to present the payroll. The company has failed to do it. Yet, they kept paying.
So that suggested that there was an excess there that isn't or wasn't accounted for.
Exactly. And the assemblies, the biggest ones are the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly and then the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. I went to KMA. We went out to the Central Business District with KMA officials. And I captured this in a documentary, Robbing the Assemblies. And they use their IGF to employ people to sweep the central business district of Kumasi. So I asked, but on paper, Zoomlion is supposed to have about 1,700 people here, so we don't find them. So if you are a DC, an MC, and then there's an opportunity to take charge of your sanitation, and all of the monies were paid from the District Assembly's Common Fund.
Right.
So if you now have the opportunity to get people to sweep or clean your community, and you think you need a contractor from Accra to come and then supervise them, and the supervision is just like this. Zoomlion didn't have a lot of people. Or even now, if you go to some of the districts, they have just 1 or 2 employees. So they use this same YEA sweepers. Maybe this area, you be the head. This area, you be the supervisor. So amongst them, that's how they operated. So these contracts are not needed. The fumigation contracts are not needed. The only contract that I sincerely believe a company may be needed is the one that SIP, the one to ensure that the refuse that is swept. So this contract we are talking about, when Zoomlion, the workers finish sweeping and they put the refuse in the container size in the markets, lifting it to the disposal site, Zoomlion has a separate contract that pays for that. When it gets to the sanitation, the landfill site, there's another contract that pays for the management of the landfill site. And if you go to most of the assemblies across the country, they just burn the landfill sites, but they pay money to manage it. Then there's a contract for sanitation, the fumigation. The fumigation contracts are 3. 1 from the assemblies, 1 from the Ministry of Health, which is awarded and then paid for by the National Health Insurance Authority. And then the local government ministry every year awards another one. So all these contracts, if you look at the payments, billions of cedis, but nothing is happening. So for the lifting, not all assemblies have the trucks. Some of the big assemblies do. I went to Takwan Swayim, and they had trucks, and they were managing their area better than where Zoomlion's workers were.
Right.
So if assembly doesn't have those trucks, and they want to engage a company through competitive bidding to lift the containers to the disposal site, I don't have any problem with that. But the other contracts, just take the District Assembly's Common Fund audit by the Auditor General. Just take any report and type fumigation. Download the report, search for fumigation. You will see the plethora of incidents. Every year, these people paid, Zoomlion doesn't deliver, yet it is happening. So these are some of the things that I think we should follow up. And I don't think it should be a Manasseh campaign because the monies are not
coming to you.
Coming to me. All of us tend to or stand to lose. We are paying billions to companies that don't deserve it, yet nurses cannot be paid and all of that. So these are things that I think beyond the announcement, I would want all of us to pay attention to. And also pay attention to the metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives who would think that, well, there was corruption at the center, it's been decentralized, it is our time to chop. We will pay attention to them.
You've got your eye on them. Most certainly. And we've also reached out to Zoomlion this morning to get their side, but we're told that they say they haven't received any documentation from the presidency and cannot speak to the issues at this time. I'm sure in due course we'll also be able to hear from Zoomlion. But Manasseh, thank you so much for laying that foundation. This is a quest that you have been on since 2013. So what is that, 12 years now? You have been advocating that governments, past and present, look at this particular deal with Zoomlion to see if we're really getting bang for our buck. Finally, in just about a minute, you talk about the conditions under which these sweepers were working, and you say it's one that was quite heartbreaking for you, seeing them work and then only earning 250 Ghana cedis a month. Speak to that for me, and then I'll move on to Prof.
Yes, they don't have health insurance. You know, they are dealing with fields, so when they fall sick, they're on their own. Some are on the streets. If they are injured, they're on their own. Some would move from their locations to go to where they work, no transportation allowance, nothing. And you have a contract that says every month allocate 850, Zoomlion takes 600 and they take 250. And if you look at the numbers Zoomlion claims to be controlling, if you do the math, a company is taking about 27 million cedis every month, okay, managing these sweepers. But the people who go out to sweep, if you divide their daily wages like 8 cedis, they cannot buy roadside wache. I was in Kumasi on Saturday. We went to a place to eat. They said jollof, they start from 30 cedis.
The scoop?
The scoop,
One
yes.
scoop?
No, when they are serving, they start from 30 cedis.
Okay.
That's the lowest you could. I think
that's without meat.
No, without
even
meat.
Kumasi where food is cheaper.
Yes. So I was telling someone that Kumasi, the cost of living is getting higher. But 2 years ago, I tried to buy wachi at Baoleshi here, and they said, "Oh, I just need something small." I said, "Oh, mama 5 cedis, so you enter 5 cedis." It begins from 10 cedis, and that 10 cedis, a baby that knows how to eat can finish it. So you have people who go and work, then they take like 8 cedis per day, and they cannot buy kinky, they cannot buy wachi. But this program wasn't even meant for the RLGs, the Zoomlions, and the Zero groups of this world. This was a program meant for the unfortunate young people who don't have so much in terms of education or employable skills. Because the national security had said youth unemployment was becoming a national security threat. So let's do something about it. So if Zoomlion wants to do business, there should be business avenues. This is a social intervention program. You don't allow greedy corporate entities to run it down.
Manasseh, thank you so much again for that foundation. Prof, I come to you